Welcome back. We're going to start to um, create our pattern. This is the front of the dress that we're going to be doing. So we're going to start on the front, this section here. So what we do is, on a new sheet of paper, we're going to mark out our block like that. So we place the block on. That's the first thing that we do. Mark around the block like that, all the way around, down the front and along the bottom. As you notice, I'm using my extended body block, and I've showed you in a previous video how to extend your body's block. So this is the extended one. So we're going to mark out all around, and we're going to put our dart in. We're going to put our darts in, and we're going to use I use this as a spike so that I can get my dart position in on there. So I'm just going to put them in before I remove the block. So these are the position that I need on there. And once I've done that, once you mark your block off, you can now remove it, because you're going to do your drafting now on this new sheet of paper. So what I do, I'm going to transfer all my lines that I've traced off. That's the waistline here, the waistline there, and I'm going to connect the darts in like that, along there, like that. I'm going to start off with the front because I've got to do this in two parts. So I'm going to trace that off. As you can see, we've got now the dart has been marked on to our block. So the next thing I need to do is to extend this center front line. So I'm going to draw a line from there all the way down. I've got to make it have enough paper, because I'm going to decide on how long I want this dress to be. It can be to your knee, it could be below your knee, and it could also be down to the floor. So it depends on what you want. So I'm going to decide to do it below my knee, this dress. So I have to measure from my waist to get the length. From my waist down, I'm going to measure with my tape measure. I'm going to measure the length that I want, and then I'm going to put a mark down. So I want it to be there. So I've got a mark, the length of the skirt, finished skirt. So I've put a mark, and then I'm going to square a line out at that point there, like that. Make sure the line is squared. Square the line out. Square a line out like that. And all I'm going to do is to connect a line from there down to the bottom. So like that, with your ruler, you connect a line like that. So as you can see, that is the full length that I want this dress to be. So once I've done that, I've created the length. I'm going to create the line, the design line for where I want the bottom half of the dress to be, which is this, it's like a fluty peplum, but it's on the skirt, on the body of the dress. So number one, I decide in my mind how deep I want that to be, right? These are just design lines that you have to think for yourself. It's not one set measurement, say like 14 or 12 or whatever, depending on how, in your mind you're thinking, yeah, I want it to be 8 inches or 6 inches. Then whatever you decide, you measure up that measure, and then you, from the bottom there, you put a mark, right? And you put a mark. So I've decided how deep I want that of my section of my skirt to be, and I'm just going to put a line across there. Always make sure these lines are squared off. Very important to square your line off so you get nice, lovely, smooth line. So this is the section that I want my bottom half of skirt, from there to there. So once I've got that on there now, the next thing I need to do is to create my neckline on there. So I'm going to do a square neckline, which I've done before in the draft before, showing you how to do different types of neckline. So I'm going to go in from the neck point, right? I don't want it right at the neck point, but I want it in a bit. You can take it back even more if you want, but I'm just going to take mine to there. And then I'm going to decide how deep I want it down from the neck point there to that point. And then I measure down from that point where I want it to be. And I'm going to take it to there. And then once again, I'm going to square a line out like that. Make sure it's squared out. I'm going to square it out. Once I've got it squared out, and then I'm going to square it up to that point here that I've got. So I'm going to square that up to there, like that. Take that up, touching that line that I've drawn, and it's got to touch that, so you know that's squared, like that. So I'm going to take it to there. So that's my neck, how wide I want that to be. If you don't want it to be that wide, you come back a bit, and you don't go out so far, and you take it back into there. So that's my neckline that I want, how wide I want it to be. So the next thing I need to do, so I've created my neckline, I've created my hem bit, and then what you need to do is now copy out this shape that you have, or trace it off. So this is your center front, and you've got to remember it's on the fold. So I just write center front here, and I know that this is the top. That's going to be joined back to the skirt after I've worked on that bit. So you've created all your style lines on there now. So all we need to do, what I'm going to do before I actually cut it out, I'm going to put my grain line on there. So my grain line, I've got a grain line there. I'm just going to put it in so that I can draw it in. So see, it's important that you can always go back to your block. So I'm going to put that grain line in there, and that one. I'm using my plodder to get my line on there. And I'm just going to draw the grain line in on my pattern, which is through there, along there, and all the way there. So that is my grain line there. So once you've got that, you've now created the extended body block, and you've extended for the length that you want your dress to be. And then you created your neckline on. And then what we do is trace this out. So this is this is what is called your draft. So once you've got your draft, I don't normally cut my draft up, because whatever you make your pattern, you can always go back to your draft to see where you've gone. So once you've got that, you cut out, and this is what you've got. This is the shape that you've got here. It's all cut out here. So I've cut one out. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come back to it and go through the next stage. So that's the first thing we do. We mark around our block first. Then we extend it, the length from the waist down. And then we connect the line down, square the line out. So this now is our total length of our dress. Then we design the neckline on. This could be a square, it could be a round, it could be a U neckline, a sweetheart neckline, whatever neckline you want. you create it on your draft. And then from that draft, we're going to trace it all off, because we're going to create our style lines on the next sheet that we do. So that is that for now. I'll come back to you and you will see how we create our different parts of the front body of the dress. Bye.